he's a good fighter. I've got a lot of respect for Jack. But on February 26, is coming up short again. He's tasting his first defeat as a professional, and you know, he's a good fighter, but he's just not as good as what I am.
You know, he sat in that chair and he was incredibly respectful, as was his trainer, about your ability. Is it nice to not have to have the needle and the trash talk in a bout?
Sometimes, yeah, it's good. Good not to have it. You know, it's good to. I like to always show respect to my opponent and stuff, but also it depends on the way that they act towards you as well. You know, so yeah, I prefer being like this. You know, it's nice and calm and relaxed. But you know, there's plenty of time for the needle to come, which will come. Especially on the closer to the fight that we get, it will come. The needle will come.
Now, he said he was quite obvious about it and honest about it. You are a step up for him. You're coming off beating Ramirez. Is this a step down for you?
No, I can't say that. That would be disrespectful towards Jack. You know, he's a very good fighter. He's 26-0. Yes, it's a step up in class for him because he hasn't boxed to the level that I've boxed as a professional. You know, in terms of opponents wise and stuff like that. He's boxed nowhere near the level that I've boxed at. So yeah, it's a step up for him, and I believe obviously he's a talented fighter, but. You know, I just don't believe he's got what it takes to beat me on February 26.
Now, Ben, you've worked with Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders. How is a Josh Taylor training camp different to those two?
Josh is a very intense character. I think there's certain traits and certain characteristics that, obviously, those guys that you mentioned there, all three of them are British boxing greats. I think there's certain characteristics that they'll have in common, but one thing I would say is Josh is extremely intense.
Now, you've worked with Josh for a number of years now, a couple of years, I think. What have you worked on to make him even better?
I think just helping Josh understand his game a little bit more and understanding when to use. He's a very versatile fighter, and it's more understanding when to use certain tools that he's got in his toolbox, and that comes with experience. Josh is, you know, there's only two fighters that have ever achieved that are currently undisputed champions in world boxing. That's Josh Taylor and Canelo Alvarez. But Josh has achieved this in, you know, 18 fights. So, you know, through experience as well, he's going to gain a lot of knowledge and through these training camps of understanding when to use the certain tools that he's got in his toolbox. Yeah,
so Josh, how come you and Ben work so well together? What is it?
I don't know, you know, he's just, for one, he's a good guy, all-round good guy, you know, it's very hard for not to get along with Ben, you know, so he's a very good guy. First of all, good guy, but also a great coach. The way he breaks everything down to, you know, the fundamentals of moves and why you're doing it and stuff as well, not just going through it for the sake of going through it. They break it down as the reasons behind it, why we're doing it and this and that, and, you know, doing everything correctly and bringing me in on the reins a little bit, which is what I need, and he's very good at keeping me on the reins, you know, otherwise I would just keep going and going and going and going and just going through lots of exercises and keep going. And Ben's very good at, like you said, using the right tools at the right time when I need to, rather than going through the whole lot just unnecessarily.
We're a little way out from the fight, but it's close now. Just what is it like for a fighter at this stage? I asked the challenger this, and he said, you just get on with it. But is there a little bit of you thinking, I can't get injured, I can't get a cold, I can't get COVID? Is there that going on in your head? Nah,
none of that at all, because then you become hesitant to doing things. You know, you just got to, like you said, get on with it and do. I'm in the zone now, you know, it's only 4 weeks to go, so it's the business end of training camp, so it's where we're actually ramping things up and getting into physical peak condition for the next 3 weeks, you know, so this is starting preparing mentally and physically, both for a 12-round hard fight, which is what I always prepare for.
Now, in the latest Ring Magazine rankings, you're ranked 5th above some great names. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not one for blowing my own trumpet, but I think given what I've achieved last year and the fashion that I've did it in only 18 fights and stuff as well, so, and beating champion after champion, undefeated fighter after undefeated fighter, you know, in my last 5-6 fights, so I think I'm deserving of the spot 100%, yeah.
And what's next? Oh, obviously, you've got this fight next, but to get up those rankings, do you go up a weight? What do you do?
We don't know yet. You know, I could stay at 140 if I want. You know, but you know, the ultimate goal is to see what happens on February 26th. You know, I'm not thinking anything else other than Jack Catterall. He's here to get all these belts that I've worked so hard for to get, and he's here to try and rip them away from me. You know, and you know, put a dampener on the party and a dampener on my goals and ambitions for the future. So I'm not thinking about anything other than Jack Catterall at the minute.
Tell us about Catterall. What have you spotted?
Well, obviously we can't give too much away, but what I will say is, without going into too much tendencies and technical aspect of it, just mentally and emotionally, you know, Jack will have to prove to himself very early on in the fight that he belongs at this level, because it's okay being told that you belong at this level, but very early on he will probably have to start fast to convince himself. Doing that, I believe that if he does that, Josh will potentially bring him on to a shot similar to like he did against Ramirez. Or if Jack looks, you know, gets caught up in the moment and isn't quite sure of himself and doesn't start fast, then if Josh Taylor gains momentum, it's a very tough thing to break.
Josh, you're obviously further down the line than Jack Catterall. Do you remember that step up, that feeling of, right, I'm in the big time now?
Yeah, I've had it a few times in my career. I've had big jumps in my career from early on. You know, the first one was Victor Postel. You know, and only I think it was my 11th or 12th fight. You know, my introduction to world level boxing, and what an introduction it was. You know, beating everyone at the time. He was a monster. His only defeat was against Terence Crawford on a points decision. So. That was my introduction to world level boxing, and you know, and I was fairly inexperienced as a professional myself, so that was my introduction, and from then on I've just grown from strength to strength. I've been in with big fights since then, you know, the Ivan Barancek, my world title, then the Regis Prograis fight, and then the Ramirez fight. You know, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger tests every time, and every time I always come out on top.
You mentioned Terence Crawford there, welterweight. Could he go up a weight and take him?
Yeah, Josh has the potential to be a 140-pound career fighter, or he could go up to 147 and challenge the likes of these guys. We met Terence in the gym, and Josh told him to his face in a respectful way that Josh would love that fight. But as Josh was saying, you know, we've got every blood, sweat and tear that Josh has ever shed boils down to this moment at the pinnacle of the sport, and every title is on the line. So we've got to get February 26th out of the way first.
Now, we spoke to the England football manager, Gareth Southgate, today, and he's been talking about how music's really important before the boys go out. What do you two listen to before you do the ring walk?
It just depends, you know, it depends on the mood that I'm in, you know, going into the fight. Sometimes can be a bit of James Brown, sometimes can be a bit of Motown, can sometimes be a bit of rap, can sometimes be dance music, sometimes rock, heavy rock, you know, AC/DC and all that kind of stuff. It just depends on the kind of mood and rhythm that you're in, you know. So, but yeah, music does play a good part in warming yourself up and getting yourself ready to go out for a fight.
Right. I want to play a little game with you. I've got to remind you it's live TV, so be good.
Watch my P's and Q's.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We've got some of the best fighters in the fight game. I'm going to give you their name, and I want the first word that springs to mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Tyson Fury.
The greatest heavyweight.
Anthony Joshua.
Muscly, strong.
Chris Eubank Jr.
Fast hands.
Callum Smith.
Good all-rounder.
Sonny Edwards.
Slick boxer.
Jack Catterall.
26-1.
Brilliant. Thank you both for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. As you said when you walked in, I've got the tartan on for you. So all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brilliant job.